I am so fucking sick of Vikings fans. I hate Vikings fans. I hate them. 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 Oh, they are off the fucking deep end. Um, I'm at wit's end because the um, uh, report came out tonight um, that um, regarding Danielle Hunter, that the Vikings are possibly going to trade Danielle Hunter, or they're trying to trade Danielle Hunter because apparently there had been other reports in recent days um, about the contract negotiations because he's got the big roster bonus coming up, and you know they presumably trying to work something out with him. But now, maybe they're just not working out. He wants too much, whatever. And they're trying to trade him, and people have lost their fucking minds. And this is nothing to do with Danielle Hunter, the player. I mean, you know, one of my favorite players on the team, certainly one of the best players on the team when healthy. But that's the big thing. It's like he misses all of 2020 with the neck injury, the infamous tweak, and then he plays like 6 games last year and tears the pec, and he's out for the rest of the season. I think he got hurt in the Dallas game, maybe. Um, and then that was it. He was out for the rest of the season. Now, when it comes to injuries, major injuries, they're not always predictive like that. Like, it doesn't, just because he's had two major season-ending injuries 2 years ago, it doesn't mean he's always going to have. That doesn't mean he's going to always have that. He could play the rest of his career and never get hurt again. It's possible, unlikely, but it's possible. Um, but my fear has been, and I've said this before on videos and stuff. Like, my fear is that Danielle Hunter is going to be J.J. Watt, and it's going to be a thing where he's a fantastic player when he's on the field, but he's not on the field as much as you want him to be, and the cost you have to pay to have him on your roster is way more than the return on investment is just not good. You know, like J.J. Watt was a big signing for the Cardinals. I don't have the numbers in front of me how much he played, but he was hurt again. He had injuries with Houston. Like, great player when he's on the field, but then it's like, he ain't on the field enough to really justify the contract that it takes to have him. And the fact that, if they've moved on, if the Vikings have moved on to, hey, we're going to explore trade options, that tells me that whether it's Hunter or the agent or both, that they're asking for max type money. They don't have max deals. They don't have max deals in the NFL, but Hunter still wants to be, you know, and there were reports about this last year. That's why I was looking, like last offseason, like maybe that was when they were gonna have to do something with him. That he wants, that level of money. Could he get that money? I don't know. And not from us. Like, I'm sorry. Like, you know, I'm sure they'd be willing to do a reworking of the deal, and and you know and have him on the roster and have him ready to go because he's incredibly valuable. He's only, I think, 27. Like, he's got years left if he's healthy, for sure. You know, like a pass rusher can play certainly well into their 30s. Like, he's got years left if he's healthy. But, like, yeah, they have they don't have infinite cap. To this point, still. Now they were able to get cap compliant today for the start of free agency, but to this point, the only player on the team who's done anything to fucking help the cap is, how ironic, Kirk Cousins. Um, but no one else has done anything. At least nothing that's been announced. Um, and Hunter was looked at as one of the prime guys that they would maybe do something. but it sounds like it's gone bad. So, that tells me that he's trying to get that huge payday, and he might be able to get it from someone, but they have to know, him and his agent. They have to know that they're not going to get that from the Vikings. Like, they can do some sort of extension restructuring thing that gets him paid. Probably not like max type dollars. I'm sorry, and I wouldn't. As much as I like Danielle Hunter when he's on the field, I wouldn't do it. You know, I'm not the gambling type, I guess. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't put that kind of financial resource, those financial resources into Danielle Hunter when he's played like 6 games in 2 years. I'm sorry, I just wouldn't. And I get the counter argument that when he's on the field, he's amazing. He was on a Hall of Fame trajectory for sure before these last 2 years, and he could get back on that. But now I wouldn't. If there's trade discussions over the next few days, I think it's by Sunday they have to decide, with the bonus or whatever. So there's a couple more days to go. I wouldn't just trade him for nothing. I'm not going to trade him for a 6th-round draft pick. I'm not going to release him. I don't even know what releasing him outright would do to the cap. But I'm sure they would save the roster bonus, but they'd probably have just a whole bunch of dead cap, and you don't want to do that. Like, all things being equal, you'd rather have him on the team. But you can't get him you apparently can't get him without giving him like top level, defensive player contract, and I wouldn't do it. And I'm guessing Kwesi wouldn't do it. But and this is definitely a two sides argument, but there's no listening to the side that says, well, maybe he's a risk and maybe he's just not going to be worth that money, and you can invest those resources back into others or the team. A lot of, I know, whatever mock drafts are worth, a lot of them seem to be saying Vikings might go pass rusher in the first round. It seems like this is a franchise that's always able to find defensive linemen and defensive ends. And it's hard to know. It's going to be a different scheme on defense. So who knows if Hunter would be more or less effective there. But if you can't work it out with him for a reasonable contract, it doesn't mean you have to, you have to pay him like way below market value, but you can't pay him the absolute top money, which he's apparently, one would have to assume he's trying to get with this deal. So I would trade him if you can get a legitimate good offer. I don't know what that is. I don't know if that means a 1st-round pick or just a couple, like a 2nd and a 3rd or something like that. I would pull the trigger and trade him, and it's a huge risk. It's absolutely a huge risk because if he stays healthy, whatever team he ends up on, he's going to be a beast, and it's going to reflect badly on Kwesi, and it's going to reflect badly on the Vikings, and it will, and it would be a classic, hindsight thing. It's like, well, you should have kept him. Yeah, I think could happen. I mean, it's a risk. Either way, it's a risk. You sign him, you give him a big contract, and he has more big injuries, and you're not getting any return on that investment. You trade him, he stays healthy, and you've traded away one of the best pass rushers in football, who's got a lot of years left. It's a really shitty situation. It's a situation I'm glad I don't have to make the decisions for. But of course, people are blaming this on Kirk. They're like, well, we're gonna trade Hunter, but we kept Kirk. What are we doing? Well, I kind of just explained what we're doing, but like you can rip Kirk all you want, and no one ever stops. But he did the restructuring. He did a deal to help the cap out, and it ain't gonna fucking hurt him down the line either. Hunter doesn't want to do that, and that's his prerogative to not want to do that. But Kirk is always on the field. Kirk doesn't get hurt. Hunter's missed almost two entire seasons because of injury. These things matter. These things absolutely matter. That's the difference. People are like, oh, why do we keep Kirk and pretend like we're going to compete and then we're going to turn around and trade Danielle Hunter? Well, that's why. Because he is a major injury risk, and he wants money that we can't really afford. And frankly, I would rather pay money for a top 10 quarterback than a top 5 pass rusher, even if he is healthy. That's just me. The Kirk derangement syndrome, that doesn't allow anything. We're almost at the point of Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah derangement syndrome. People are just absolutely laying into this poor guy. I feel so bad for Kwesi. I wish he'd never taken this job. This fan base is a fucking joke. I hate him. I hate this fan base. As of a few days ago, they wanted Kirk trade. They wanted the whole roster to be nuked and for us to go into a long rebuild. What the hell did you think that was going to include? Did you not think that would include a Danielle Hunter trade? If that had been the path they'd taken, Danielle Hunter's gone anyway. They've been trading Kirk. They would have traded Hunter. They would have probably traded Thielen, Cook, anybody. They would have both. If these people had gotten what they wanted, that's what they would have been doing with the roster. Hunter would have been gone too. And now they're mad because they might trade Hunter.
He's an underrated pick and roll player because he's never been in a ton of them, but he can make.
I don't get these people. These people are fucking just idiots. I hate this fucking fan base. They're just so stupid. I'm at wit's end with these people. Whether it's the backlash to the Kirk signing, the shit about Hunter, that just galling stuff that I'm seeing and hearing about Kwesi, even from theoretically respectable media about, oh, he's just a puppet. He's just being told what to do by the Wilfs. There's something real creepy about some of the stuff that's being said about Kwesi. He's a young guy, he can't possibly think for himself, so he's just carrying the water for the Wilfs. It can't possibly be that Kwesi just has a different plan, a different strategy than what these people want. And it doesn't mean that it doesn't even mean that Kwesi's good. We don't know yet. We don't know. We're not going to have any idea until we start, seeing the results of drafts, for one thing. But it's day one of free agency. Free agency started 6 hours ago or some shit. And people are just calling for him to be fired and just raging at everything. They sign, they make they didn't have too much going on today free agency wise. They signed I forget what his name is. I forget what his name is. Some lineman, some they signed a backup interior lineman from the Broncos. And they signed him to one of these deals that's a minimum deal, no guaranteed money, no sign. It's basically like a camp invite contract. And people lost their fucking minds about it. Oh my God, how could we sign? What are they doing? How could we sign this guy? It's it's a nothing deal. It's maybe he plays okay, and they can, pencil him in as a backup to multiple positions, because you like to have guys, on the line who can play multiple positions because it helps save roster spot. We got Mason Cole left. Rashad Hill's probably gone. Those are two guys who played multiple positions, and they're gone. So let's get somebody. Maybe this guy we signed. I think he came from the. He came from the Broncos. Um, he's been in the league a couple years. Maybe he's not gonna even. He might not even make the team. But I mean, and he was signed to a deal that indicates that he's just being basically invited to training camp because you're not signing a guy to that kind of contract. If you're penciling a guy in to start, like I saw someone that he's going to compete for a starting guard. No, he's not. You're not signing a guy to that kind of contract if he's going to if he's going to if he's going to start if you're planning to have a guy in the mix to start, you're signing him to a real contract. I have to pause briefly. Well, we're back. Okay. I forget where I left off. I think I was talking about the lineman. Yeah, like it's just a signing. It's basically a camp body signing. Is it like it's such a nothing signing, and people freaking out. And then they signed the other guy they signed today. I forget his name. Johnny Munt, I think is his name. He's a tight end. Coming in from the Rams, so obviously KOC knows what he's up to. Just a minor signing, and people are getting mad about that. Why are we signing him and not signing Tyler Conklin, who signed with the Jets today? I was anticipating Conklin leaving because you got Irv Smith coming back. Hopefully he's healthy, and Conklin did very well last year. You're not going to pay big money for like your number 2 tight end. So I don't know if this is the guy we signed now from the Rams is going to be like the number 2 tight end or still somebody we've got on the roster, or maybe even a draft pick. But it's minor signing. People are freaking out because like all these guys are going off the board. Well, like all the best guys are gone, according to who? Like I see some of these deals that are being thrown out there. There's a few teams like Jacksonville who are just signing. It's like they're signing everybody. It's like it's like Brewster's Millions. Like they have to spend a certain amount of money or something in a certain amount of time. It's like who bleeping like some of these contracts that they're putting out. It's like they're ridiculous contracts. I'm glad we're not signing them. Sometimes the best contracts are the ones you don't sign. It's like, yeah, we still have stuff to do with the roster. But no, all the free agents are not gone. It's like we don't have a lot of cap space, but we've done none of the other. To this point, the only thing we've done, well, we cut Pierce, and they did the redone thing with Kirk. That's it. Like there's still a bunch of guys who have been talked about as restructure or even trade or even release, I suppose, candidates, including Danielle Hunter, and we haven't done anything with any of these guys. And I like if I see one more fucking comment about this regime is just like the last one. Why? Because we signed a fucking defensive tackle. Because we or because we did a very smart thing and gave an extension to Kirk. This fan base is just a fucking joke. All the positivity there was, about Kwesi when they brought him in, which was only like a month ago or maybe a little more than a month ago. It's gone. This is like record time for a fan base to just jump off the ledge regarding somebody. And I shouldn't be surprised because I mean you look at the lead up to free agency here. Everything that had come out of from Kwesi, from Kevin, from the Wilfs was talking about we're not gonna blow this thing up. We're not gonna Everyone wants to. People want to tank, even though there's no. Tanking doesn't fucking work. That's not a strategy. People don't tank. You just maybe you end up being bad, but you don't tank on purpose because that's fucking stupid. Um, Everything from the team, not from media who have agendas, not from fans who don't know any better. Everything had been we like Kirk. We think we can compete. I mean, if the idea is, one thing I baffled by it is like if you think this, the concept of bringing in a new GM, new coaching staff, maybe almost entirely new coaching staff, if you think this can't do anything because they're just doomed with this roster, well then why did you even fire the fucking coach in the first place? Using that logic, Zimmer was just cursed with this horrible roster. Like, I don't know how anyone who claims to be a Vikings fan or even just someone who follows the Vikings can look at what's happened, particularly last year, because I was still very much on Zimmer, very much a Zimmer supporter in 2020. I thought what they did that season, I thought that was actually I still think that was a pretty good coaching job to squeeze 8 wins out of that, or 7 wins, I guess. 7 wins. Yeah, that was a 7-9. So 7 wins out of that season. I thought that was an accomplishment. Last year, I don't know what people are looking at if they didn't watch that season and think that coaching was far and away the biggest problem with this team. And then you technically you could use that as be like, well, why did Spielman have to go? Well, Spielman had to go because of just, I think, very poor drafts for about 6 years. And if Spielman's success on offense, other than the offensive line, although that had gotten a little better with O'Neal, and I think Darrisaw will be fine, and Cleveland. I think if he had drafted and picked up guys on defense at the same level, I think he'd probably still be here. But you know, but I mean, in general, people were fine seeing Zimmer go and seeing Spielman go, and they seemed positive about Kwesi and Kevin, even though there were people who wanted, Jim Harbaugh, and it seemed like people got over that pretty fast. Although I see a lot of stuff about, well, this is why Harbaugh didn't want to come here. No, we didn't. It's not about him didn't want to come here. We fucking chose Kevin O'Connell over him. Deal with it. Just accept that reality. But they want to spin that into being some sort of revisionist history bullshit that we desperately wanted Harbaugh and he turned us down. It's not what happened. But there was positivity about Kwesi, and it's gone for a lot of people. Not the smart fans. Smart fans aren't out on Kwesi, but I wonder how many smart fans are left, because it sure doesn't seem like there's that many left. They're out on Kwesi, and they're just raging about him, and they're just insulting him. I mean, the idea that he's like just some puppet for the Wilfs is so arrogant and insulting towards him. And I'm sure Kwesi's got a lot more on his plate than following, fans on the internet and social media, what they're saying about him. But I feel bad. I feel bad for the guy. Because he thought, okay, this is gonna be like a fresh start, new approach to building a roster. But that doesn't mean you blow everything up. There's good stuff on this team. This is why I had been saying, even before Zimmer was actually fired, that this is a very desirable place to come, because there's a lot of talent already here. Very good ownership that's always willing to spend money. And the idea that Kwesi was gonna, you know, come in here and Kevin too, and that they were gonna come in here and the first thing they were gonna do was just destroy a roster and condemn themselves to major losing seasons for a couple years. You think you? I mean, look at this fan base now. They're losing their mind about Kwesi. They're calling for him to be fired, and they're insulting him, and they, you know. You think they were going to have patience? These same fucking fans. A lot of these are the same ones who wanted the roster blown up. Do you think these people really were going to have patience to go through a multi-year rebuild? Because people are like, oh well, Rodgers is back. We can't win the North, so we should just blow it all up and try to compete in 4 years. Well, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do for those 4 years? You're not gonna have any patience for a rebuild, even if that was the approach. You know what? You know goddamn well what this fan base would be doing. You know, they go if they blew it all up and we're starting, you know, Ryan Fitzpatrick or someone this year and traded a bunch of the vets, and we're just throwing away the season, and they go 4-13 or something. They'd be calling for these guys to be fired, and every single one of them would be. None of them would have patience for a rebuild. Not one. Because they don't have patience to give Kwesi any runway to just, you know, the idea that he doesn't have some sort of plan, I think is so insulting to him. Just because he's not doing the exact things that they want at the exact, you know, time frame that they want, that must mean he's an idiot who has no plan and is in over his head, or that he's a puppet for the Wolves. This fan base, I hate them. I fucking hate them. I wish this fan base was the fan base of another team, so I wouldn't have to associate with them at all. I hate them. I fucking hate them. And this doesn't mean like, oh, you just are a homer and you just agree with everything they do. But we don't even know the results yet. We don't even know the fucking results yet. People saying, well, who's our starting cornerbacks now? Who's our starting passer? It's day one of free agency. We don't need to know. We don't need a starting lineup right now. We are not playing games that matter for 6 months. There's the whole rest of free agency. There's trade possibilities. There's a draft. There's a training camp. There's all this stuff in between playing actual games, and we're supposed to have like a set 53-man roster. And these are the same people who pretend like they would have had patience to go through some long rebuild. No, they wouldn't. They'd be raging like the lunatics that they are if we were 0-2. You know, starting a rookie quarterback or a bridge quarterback. You know, and if we drafted a quarterback, do you think they'd have patience with a rookie quarterback who probably would come out there and struggle at least somewhat early on? No, they wouldn't. No, they wouldn't. They'd call him a bust. They'd call the guy a bust after 2 games. This fan base is stupid. They're hypocrites. I hate them. I fucking hate them. And the smart fans, the smart fans like me, and there are other ones who I engage with on social media every day, like we're being just drowned out by the endless just whining and bitching of you know, and of course a lot of this a big part of this, it just comes back to the hatred of Kirk Cousins. It all stems from that. You know, and I already did the video about Kirk and about the backlash to the Kirk move, but all these people are just insufferable. I can't imagine these people are actually Vikings fans. It just boggles the mind. It's like they have a completely different operate just like a completely different world. I don't know how they can follow a team, watch games, and just ever enjoy it. Everything makes them mad. And then you get to the off season, and everything makes them mad. Every signing, whether it's they sign a defensive tackle, they sign a linebacker, they sign guys to be starters, makes them mad. They make just a move, just a nothing kind of move, just to sign a lineman who's probably just going to show up as a camp guy and maybe make the roster. Utterly harmless signing one way or the other, and they lose their mind over it. And they call Kwesi a puppet, and they call him names, and they want him fired after a month, and not just a month, but like just a couple of days of actual, free agent stuff. What the hell is the matter with these people? And you can't get through to them. You can't convince them. They're so just. I don't even know if brainwashed is the word, because I don't know that they have a brain to be washed. These people are sick. And it's not just the Kirk Cousins derangement syndrome stuff. It's the Kwesi derangement syndrome. Like they just want everybody gone. And that, guess what? If they fired Kwesi and hired some other guy, they'd want that person gone after a week if they didn't do exactly what they want. Like we can't even give. Everyone's like, oh, this is a fresh start. This will be something new. We can't even give the guy the runway to do his first off season. We can't even give him that. This fan base is so reactionary and stupid and impatient that we can't even bother. We can't even be bothered to give him just a little bit of time. And it doesn't mean that everything he's going to do with this offseason is going to work. It doesn't mean that the guys they've already signed are good. It doesn't mean that they're going to draft well. We don't know yet. We're not going to know about Kevin as a coach until start to learn that until the fall. We're just not. You have to allow time for these guys. You would have to allow time even if it wasn't a first-time GM, first-time head coach. You have to give them time. And we give Kwesi a couple of days at most before we've got just a litany of fans calling for him to be fired, and saying, well, he can't even be the GM. He must be a puppet of the evil Wilfs who are demanding that they not trade Kirk Cousins. That's another thing that's being spread now as like gospel, that, oh, Kirk was gonna be traded, but the Wilfs stepped in and said, no, you can't do that. There isn't a fucking iota of proof. There were rumors that certain teams were interested. Of course they were. I'm sure they got offers. I'm sure they're getting offers on Hunter. Like, I'm sure they got offers, but you're not going, but because Kwesi didn't say, oh, well, we're just going to dump Kirk because a bunch of fucking dipshits on Twitter are saying that we have to. Now Kwesi has to be fired, and he's a puppet, and he's not even doing his job, and the Wolves mandated everything because they love being mediocre. They want to be mediocre. What are these people on? These people are insane. And they get into these little circle jerks online, and it's just the same lines just repeated over and over and over. It's like it just confirms what they all think, because they're the only ones who, they'll only listen to the other people who think like they do. I mean, this is a problem with society in general. People believe wrong things because they only listen to the other people who believe the wrong things, and and then it's like the stuff just gets just accepted. It's insufferable. I can't stand this fucking fan base. Like Rick Spielman got a decade as the actual GM. Maybe he shouldn't have gotten that long, but he got that long. Like I don't recall people calling for him to be fired. After I don't even know what his first. I mean, we know his first draft after being the GM was the Matt Khalil draft, but um, I don't know what his first free agent signing was. I don't think people were. I was on Twitter by then. I don't think people were calling for Rick Spielman to be fired. I don't get it. Why can't this fan base just shut the fuck up and let the guy do his job? He'll probably make moves that at times that I don't agree with on the surface, but like I'd be love it if we had signed a center or a guard or a cornerback or something. Maybe we'll get Patrick Peterson back. He said he does want to come back, but obviously it'll money's going to talk there. But I'd love it if we had sure always shiny new toys. Like let's sign big free agent. And we've done that a lot of years. We haven't had any big signings yet this year. That doesn't mean we're just tanking on the off season. I don't get it. Like I know Kwesi's new at this, but it's so arrogant for these dipshits on Twitter to just act like, well, he must not even have a plan. He's in over his head. He doesn't know what he's doing, or the idea that he's just a puppet of the Wilfs who has no say in anything. Like, we can't this fucking idiot fan base cannot just shut up and let the guy do his job. Whether it works out or not. Make good moves, make mistakes. No one will even let him do it. Because a whole bunch of people have already decided the whole Kwesi Kevin era is a failure because we're hours into free agency and we haven't signed 8 new starters, and we haven't and we didn't trade Kirk, which is, again, it just all comes back to Kirk. It's just the hatred of Kirk Cousins is the number one thing driving so much of this. It's like, and how ironic that the only guy to this point on the roster, unless someone else has done something here, and just let's see if there's any more moves since no, doesn't appear to be any more stuff happens. I have been going a long time here. Holy shit. I will wrap this up soon, but how ironic that the only guy on the roster who's done anything so far to help the cap space is Kirk. And yeah, he got more money down the line, but he deserves it because he's a damn good quarterback. And these people want to run him out of town. They've wanted to run him out of town, and now they want to run Kwesi out of town because he didn't run Kirk out of town. It all comes back to just the bizarre, just pathological, illogical hatred of Kirk Cousins. They probably could have done every single thing this whole week exactly the same, but if they had traded Kirk Cousins, it would be 100% different response from these fans. And again, maybe this will prove to be a bad hire. We don't know that yet. We're so fucking far from understanding whether or not it's a bad hire, good hire, great hire. Same with Kevin O'Connell. We are so far out, but there's no patience. And this is from the same people who wanted a rebuild, wanted to nuke it all and rebuild for years and years. They would have had no patience. They wouldn't have given Kwesi and Kevin a benefit of the doubt as we would pile up losses in a deliberate rebuild, they would have called for him to be fired after 2 games. And if we drafted a rookie quarterback, they would call for that quarterback to be benched after 2 games if they struggled, because this fan base has no perspective and no patience on anything. And they're maniacs. They're just dumb. And there's media people who feed into this and just confirm for these people what they want to believe. There's a whole fucking radio station in this town that just confirms everything these people want to believe that's negative about the Vikings and negative about Kirk Cousins. And it just drowns out everything. I don't know where this fan base goes from here. Because there's nothing that Kwesi's going to be able to do in this offseason, the whole rest of the way, that's going to, turn these people around. Nothing, because the only thing they cared about was getting rid of Kirk, and that didn't happen. So everything else is going to be bad, because that's bad. The one thing they cared about more than life is having Kirk go away, and it didn't happen. And so now everything Kwesi does is either wrong, or it's not him doing it, it's the Wolves telling him. It's like conspiracy theory bullshit, and you can't, you ever engage with a conspiracy theorist, you can't get them off of their belief at all. It's just sickness. I don't know what to do. Just keep fighting the good fight. The good fans out there. I'm sure some good fans find these videos. But keep fighting the good fight. Like, just counter the stupid arguments and just, what can you do? I don't know. I feel bad for Kwesi, and I'm gonna feel bad for Kevin, because goddamn well that if they go 0-2 this year, or if they struggle, or whatever, for whatever reason. Now, of course, it'll all get blamed on Kirk no matter what happens, but it'll be, Kevin's in over his head. He shouldn't be a coach. He's no good. And then they'll blame him, because of course they'll be like, well, he wanted Kirk, and now that he kept Kirk and they didn't do anything. So I don't know. I've been going too long here. This is way too fucking long to me, just to be exasperated by idiots. But trusting Kwesi, good or bad, we'll see. But I know he knows what he's doing. At least he knows what his plan is. Whether it works out or not, we will see. But you have to give him time. You have to let this play out. You have to let him do what he's going to do, both with outside free agents, in-house guys, draft, everything. And then we can start to evaluate him. Once we start to see the whole picture, once we start to actually see what the full roster is, then we can start to talk about, is Kwesi good? Was he the right hire? But that requires patience, to wait to see how things go. And we do not have a fan base that understands the concept of patience.